With the announcement of the Witch Queen and hopefully some really juicy information coming this Tuesday, as well as the new season being launched, players are understandably very excited. And it's become sort of my lot in life to be quote-unquote famous. I don't think I consider 40,000 people famous, by taking some of your ideas, whether they be good, bad, or somewhere in between, and, well, make them into reality. Let's do a little bit of that today to hopefully get some of those creative juices flowing for the next season drops. Welcome back, Guardians, to another TDT video. I'm your humble host, Mason777. If you're not familiar with this series, what we do is we take exotic ideas from the comments section, as well as some ideas from our Patreon, and we do our best to make them into reality. We flesh them out and apply a certain layer of game design logic to it, as well as me sitting down with a thonk emoji on my face for over an hour, staring at your ideas, thinking, how can I make this possibly make its way into the game? I do my best to maintain the creative integrity of each of these ideas, but sometimes, let's just say, mistakes are made, and sometimes things are just not sexy, and we gotta sexify things. It's part of my job description to make things sexy. Let's go ahead and start off here with the exotic idea of the Feast. It's a 600 RPM SMG with the intrinsic perk called Take a Bite. This weapon's bullets lodge into enemies. When killing a target with lodged bullets, you are healed for each bullet, and all those bullets launch at the target, dealing half damage. The exotic perk is called Endless Hunger. When this weapon hits a target, you gain a small amount of health, but when you miss, you get damaged. That was a mouthful. I got through it. I'm not having a stroke, I promise. What we came up with here is a bit of a rework to the flavor. Like I said, I try to maintain the creative integrity of each of these ideas, but this was screaming Siva to me. So, intrinsic perk rework, we now have unstable variable. Damaging targets grants you health and missed shots damage you. The creator themselves did say that missing shots deals more damage to you than the healing would actually heal you, which does make sense. This does make it a better risk reward system. And the exotic perk is called Unstable Replication. Defeated targets explode, launching nanites in all directions. It was difficult getting this not to be Outbreak perfected, as obviously the Siva stuff we don't really have a whole lot of in-game experience with. We don't have many weapons that are Siva based. We don't really have any armor that is Siva based. So trying to create some flavor out of this while maintaining its Siva feel was a bit tricky, but I hope this maintained what it was you were looking for this, as well as adding a little bit more. I think this idea is absolutely fantastic. I know it's not quite an SMG in terms of its look, it's just the Fabian strategy from Destiny 1, but it's really hard to find SMGs that fit the Siva theme, and I'm no artist. If you want to check the artists who are making this, by the way, check the link in the description below. Let's roll forward to the next idea we have here, which is the Anilio. Thank you so much for telling me how to pronunciate this, because I probably still slaughtered it. This is an exotic stasis special ammo linear fusion rifle / scout rifle. That was a lot of words that sounded really nerdy, but here it is. Like I mentioned, it is a special ammo scout rifle / linear fusion. So it is I decided to put it in the 180 RPM category, as we don't have any exotic 180 RPMs. And they're arguably one of the worst weapon archetypes in the entire game, barring, I already know, calm down, hung jury simps, barring a hung jury with box breathing, okay? Chill. Its intrinsic perk is called Trinary Charge. Variable trigger system, hold to increase damage, ammo consumption, and stasis effect. So it operates very similarly to something how like your Devil's Ruin would work, where you can kind of tap fire it for the normal damage type, but if you press and hold, it will wind up. What makes this interesting is that depending on when you release will determine how much ammo gets taken out of the magazine, how much stasis effect it deals, and how much damage this does. So at the base level, just tap firing this thing, it has, by the way, 8 rounds in the magazine on spawn, and by picking up ammo, it will give you 4. With scavengers, it will give you 8. So if you're worried about this in PvP, this would operate very similarly to how the Ariana's Vow would work, all right? Because I'm right there with you. A stasis primary weapon sounds terrifying, but with the ability to only at maximum get 2 kills with this thing if you are the only one dealing damage, I think makes this fair, but I digress. The Trinary trigger system has a lot of information on it. I'm gonna blast through these here. if you're at a charge of 2, so if you press and hold it for like, let's say like half a second and release, it would consume 2 ammo, dealing more damage to the target, obviously. And if you hit a target in the head, it would deal hefty amounts of slow, making so that if you fire just 1 more bullet, it will freeze them. And then if you hold it down for a full second, so it's a very long charge up time, and you hit a target to the body, it will instantly freeze them. Obviously the freeze will be broken out very quickly, and it will consume 4 rounds. So mathematically speaking, this would be the same as if you were firing 1 shot out of a 2-round linear fusion rifle. I like this idea a lot. And also the exotic perk I almost forgot to mention is called Frostfire. Defeating slowed targets grant weapon ammo. This helps the normal stasis 180 scout rifle have a couple more rounds, so if it takes 4 to kill a target, killing a target will give you 1 back in PvP. It just allows you to maintain a little bit more uptime with this thing. Let me know what you think of this one. Let's roll on to the next one. Next up from our Patreon users, which, by the way, if you want a better chance of getting your idea featured, there are far fewer Patreon supporters than there are the 500 to sometimes 1,000 comments. So if you want to both support the channel, help me keep bread and, more importantly, burritos on the table, join our Patreon. You'll be able to get direct access to my DMs, as well as whenever we do one of these, I will let you know that I'm looking for ideas with a post and just grab your comments. But self-plugging out of the way, what we have here is the Salamanders Breath. Full stop, that name is ugly. Let's sexify that name. Let's call that the whelp's word. I think that stands out a little bit more. Salamander's breath just sounds like my breath would smell like bugs, which nobody wants that. No one wants cricket breath. This is a kinetic 720 RPM auto rifle. And now you might see, looking at this here, that this has a 1000 RPM alternate mode, which you might be a bit confused on. If you want an analog to this, this is very much similar to something like the Symmetry, where as you deal damage with a normal fire mode, you can swap it over and have this really powerful alternate mode. I made this in particular a short-ranged blast. I wanted to reduce the range on this a little bit because you are able to get solar damage out of the kinetic slot, which can be incredibly valuable. And this is going to deal damage over time. So we want to make sure that this isn't reaching across time and space to hit people and cause big bunches of burn to targets just for dealing damage normally. We already have Thorn and Lamanark. We don't need something else that's competing in that slot. As well as when we shorten that range, we can make this flamethrower mode way more badass by increasing its damage dramatically, making this have like a TTK body shot of like a half a second. So we can just really crank this thing up. As well as, I know I'm going all over the place, but this is what you signed up for when you clicked on this video. Don't click on these videos if you don't want me to go down rabbit holes talking about exotic ideas. This would work well with Blade Barrage as well as Bottom Tree Dawnblade, as it triggers the burn effect, allowing your passives to actually trigger, immediately granting some really cool and fascinating builds. I wanted to pull back a little bit on this, making so that it wasn't just abilities, solar abilities in general, because I felt like that could get a little out of hand. But nevertheless, I absolutely love this idea. I think it could be a lot of fun. It could open up a lot of different builds, especially with the new changes that we're seeing to subclasses and such. I love it. Let's roll forward. Next up, we have the Legion's Grip. This is another kinetic auto rifle, this time in the 360 RPM category, so the high impact category. Its intrinsic perk is called Legionnaire's Brotherhood. Kills with this weapon grant stacks of loyalty to all allies using Legion's Grip, increasing damage, range, and reload speed. The original creator, ironically, I felt didn't make this exotic strong enough, so I changed it from what they had previously, which was stability, reload, and handling when these loyalty stacks go up, to damage, range, and reload speed. This makes the weapon feel a little bit more punchy, and we can just make this very granular in PvP. Maybe it takes 1 less bullet to kill a target at 5 stacks, which is the highest stacks that it will go, but not to get lost in the weeds again, its exotic perk is called Imperial Database. Precision hits marks the target for you and all allies using the Legion's Grip. My initial gut reaction, which I'm sure all of you did as well, is I don't want to give ourselves wall hacks again. We've already gone through and dealt with the one-eyed mask meta. I don't want to have to go through that again. But then I thought about it and went, you know, you already have to have line of sight on the target and land a precision hit. So I'd say that's fair. Even if you are granting wall hacks to other targets, they also have to be using that weapon. And in things like PvP and the highest level of play, like Trials of Osiris, that's not going to be super duper important, as you're going to be able to communicate well with your team anyway, presumably. So that information isn't going to be as powerful as something like the One-Eyed Mask, where you could just watch somebody through a wall do a freaking dance for like 20 seconds or however long it seemed to be. And we've got Wishender, which already doesn't see a lot of play despite it having free wall hacks without you having to do basically anything. So I think this idea is just about perfect. I love the art I was able to find for this. Please check out the artist, the links in the description below. Let's roll forward to our last and featured exotic for this week. We saved the best for last, I feel. The featured exotic from this week is from a Patreon supporter, Cantaloupe, who has the idea of an exotic corruption bow called Thrill of the Hunt. Now, I want to make sure one thing is clear. Originally, their idea was just way too much. I felt like they were doing way too many things at once. They were basing it roughly on Kujay's video, if you haven't seen already. It's a very great video talking about some ideas regarding the corruption and Witch Queen stuff, the Witch Queen subclasses that we might eventually see. This plays further into this idea. Originally, like I mentioned, this user had way too many things going for it, trying to play into multiple different areas of the different corruption-based subclasses. So I pulled it back and gave it more of a hunter-specific vibe, as warlocks already have their thing with Thorn and Necrotic Grips. So let's give this thing to Hunter a little bit and pull back on its power level a little bit. The intrinsic perk is called Ensnared Barbs. Targets damaged become ensnared. Ensnared targets take stacks of corrode when they move. Now, it's important to note that this corrode, for what I have in particular, is that this corrode doesn't deal damage. The reason being is that we already have Le Monarque. We don't want to introduce another damage over time bow, as that just kind of starts to overlap, and what we get is this sort of pissing contest between the two, where it's like, are you going to use Le Monarque or are you going to use this weapon? And the only time you might use one over the other is just like, do you need the element? But if one is just clearly better than the other, you're just going to use that one. You see what I'm saying? So this corrode doesn't actually deal damage, but it does increase its stacks, which plays into its second perk, Bleeding Carcass. Corroding targets take extra damage from this weapon and grant health when defeated. So what makes this special, as this is a lightweight frame bow, the original user wanted this to be a high impact, long draw time bow, but I think there's more of a space for this, as that's kind of starting to get into Wishender's territory. I think there's more of a space for this in the lightweight frame category in the kinetic slot, as we don't have that quite yet. And what this could do is, you hit somebody, let's say in a body shot with this bow, it wouldn't be enough to kill the target with just 2 body shots. No lightweight frame bows can do that. There's no lightweight frames that can double body shot in PvP and can kill. However, if you body shot a target and then that target moves around a lot, jumps, slides, rolls, whatever it may be, they will take those stacks of corrode. And at that point, if you hit them with a second body shot, that would be enough to kill them. I think this makes it have a very clear idea with what it's going for within PvP. Of course, in PvE, this can play fantastically into certain builds, as well as the ability to get your health back off of killing a target can be clutch for staying alive in crucial gunfights. Thank you all so much for your ideas. Like I mentioned, please make sure that you subscribe if you are a longtime viewer. If you've watched a few of these already and haven't subscribed, it helps us out significantly. If you want to catch a chat with us, we've got a Discord link. It's down in the description down below, as well as some other stuff in there. I hope you guys enjoyed this stuff. Here's to hoping that the Witch Queen stuff is interesting, right? Can I get an amen on that? Regardless, I'm sure we'll all enjoy it. Bless your faces, and deuces.